Folks, hi folks, you've Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the relationship between minimum wages, the number of minimum wage jobs in the economy, and the effect of increasing the minimum wage, and is increasing the minimum wage actually a good thing? Because the knock-on effect of increasing the minimum wage is, or often can be, that organisations that would tend to employ bulk amounts of minimum wage workers will seek out various efficiencies to compensate for the wage rate. So if you're employing just a burger flipper and you can employ them very cheaply, then you don't worry about efficiency because there's such a huge supply of third world peasant workers in the West now, and they're prepared to work for the minimum of the minimum wage. Then why do you need to be efficient? You've got access to all this cheap peasant labour. Maybe you're hiring them through labour hire companies, and they're all illegals, and so you're paying them a much lower rate than you would on even the minimum wage. And so why do you need to be efficient? Why do you need to worry about things? If somebody comes late, you just say, you're out, I'll get someone else. And so you don't have to worry about management efficiency, operational efficiency, organizational efficiency, training. You don't have to worry about anything. It's monkey see, monkey do. You flip those burgers, you do those fries, that's it. The person doesn't even need to know English, for goodness sakes. It's, again, a monkey see, monkey do thing. But if you've got to pay them a higher rate of pay and you can't employ illegals anymore or pay folks under the table, then it's a different ball game. So you then have to look at an employer, any employer, be it a national chain or just a local restaurant or something, cafe or something like that. You look at other efficiencies. And now I know cafe owners and so on, and I'll come back to them a little bit later on. But when the minimum wage is increased, or you can't have easy access to large amounts of cheap peasant third world labour, you tend to have a different view of how things are, and you have to invest a little bit more carefully, as in how you do your training and your organisation and all that sort of stuff. You have to invest more carefully and look at things from a less mercenary and more sort of realistic point of view. And this is where I think pay rises and minimum wage, the knock-on effect they can have. Now, the first thing is minimum wage is going up. Oh no, all these restaurants are going to close. People are going to lose their jobs. Now, if the restaurant is that marginal, is on the margin so much that if they've got to pay a proper rate of pay to someone they can't operate, then they shouldn't be there. That is a phantom economy. That is something that's right on the margin, and that those economies or those sections of the economy are all across the Western world now. They can't compete if they have to pay for the proper, pay for resources. They just can't compete. They can't exist. They can't get enough customers. They're unable to function as a business, and so they go out of business and they go and do something else. Now, for businesses on the margin that much, the only way they can survive is having illegal peasant workers and paying them under the table. Then it's not a real business. It shouldn't exist anyway. It exists purely to exploit what is tantamount to modern day slave labour. And there are, again, vast swathes of the Western economy now, whether it's restaurants, cafes, or nail painting salons, or you name it, that only exist because of the massive surplus supply of cheap third world peasant labour, and then paying them illegally through various illicit means. But coming back to this idea of raising the wages, now, if I look at it, and it's the same in Australia as it is in Britain and America and so on, there's a chain of hardware stores, for example, and I was in a hardware store, and the manager had to be called for something. The worker there said, "Oh no, only the manager can approve this," or whatever it was. So the manager came along, and this Islander woman who was 5'4", tall, 155 centimeters tall, and about the same width, and was certainly not holding back on chocolate and take out fatty fast foods. Yeah, and she looked like she'd swung out of the jungle yesterday. Had that look on her face. We're not talking a sophisticated person here, not by far. And she was the manager. She was the manager of this hardware store. Now, it wasn't the biggest hardware store in the universe, but it was decent enough. I thought you've got, so I thought maybe the manager's away on holiday, but no, she's the she's she's the manager, and you look at some of the staff there that they're hiring. That this is an organisation that said that as long as you haven't been in prison for too long, and as long as you haven't murdered too many people, as long as your criminal history isn't too long, you can have a job here. So the standard of worker and the standard of everything has gone. There are no eager young kids that are it's their starter job from high school, or they're in senior high school. No, none of that. Instead, we're talking very low quality work, and the place is a shambles. Seriously, they couldn't manage a booze up in a brewery. They couldn't run a bar for these guys, and that shows in sort of people are hiring and the inability of them to get basic things done. They'll run out of the basic things continually at this hardware. So it's only because it's the local most convenient that I go there. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother. So this is an interesting sort of thing that the low wages and a plentiful supply of low wage workers, and it's definitely that now, creates sloppiness, inefficiency, carelessness. We don't care. Why should we care? And we can still get by. We've got so much cheap labour now. Even the store manager is paid less than the average wage. So you're looking at a store manager, say a medium-sized grocery store, and they're paid maybe $5,000 a year more than the average wage, and they've got responsibility for thousands of square feet of trading space, and maybe including casuals and 100 employees, and yet they're paid roughly the average wage. Now, most of the decisions are made by the folks downtown, so the store manager that you would hitherto have actually managed the store as a business back in the day, they just do up the employee rosters. That's about all they do now. All the stock is allocated. There's almost no decision making at store level of any description. Everything's decided on from head office at a policy level, and you see this because we get regular emails. We're on the mailing list of some of these national grocery chains. We get an email list saying this week the special product promotion is such and such or so and so product. And you go into the store to get it, and they stare blankly at you. Don't know what you're talking about. And that's, well, don't you get told by head office what's on promotion this week? Oh yeah, we haven't had time to look at it. So and then they because the store employees say, well, why don't I bring in the email that announces the product and show it to them, so then they know what it is. As well, why do you know? So the quality of people and the quality, but with the availability of cheap labour, management practice, operational and organisational structure just all goes out the window. Nobody cares. You add to that then diversity and affirmative action, as we can see with the sloppiness and the carelessness and the casual attitude of the fire department in Los Angeles. They're far more concerned with how many black lesbians there are employed than they are with putting out fires. And this is again a widespread thing that the cheap labour, whether it be in the coffee shops. For example, there's a cafe that now there's a guy, I know the guy. He's got a cafe and he employed local people. And then an Asian group came, an Asian guy came and said, look, we can staff your whole cafe with waiters, waitresses, chefs, cooks, whatever. We can staff the whole thing for half what you'd pay if you were employing local people. Now they've got, to what extent they've got a legal, but they actually run they sort of double up as a labour hire firm. They just go to cafes and say, we can staff the whole thing as of tomorrow. We just sort of pull back the doors of the minivan, and out are going to come 10 employees, and they'll just do everything for you. And you pay us one fee a week, or for how many hours or whatever it is, and we take care of everything. We take care of the payroll. We everything. We take care of it. So and it's cheaper than they could employ any locals for that, and they get the whole package just delivered in a single pass. So the guy says, well, why wouldn't I use it? I'm making $1,000 a week the way things are, so it's very marginal. I've got all the risk of the business, but with this I can make $2,000 a week or $2,500 a week and still operate the business. So this creates a not an efficiency but an exploitation, and that's quite different from efficiency. Now, when you want to increase your capability and your operational efficiency, you have to invest in better people, better quality people, more switched on people. You have to train them better, and the organizational structure needs to reflect the seeking out of efficiency of productivity and output, not efficiency of funds employed by employing slaves and peasants from the third world. Those are two different concepts of productivity. The globalists have fully embraced the idea of productivity of funds employed through, again, exploitation of cheap labor, but they've dropped the ball horribly on efficiency of productivity and output. And this is again reflected through DEI and affirmative action and just the massive surplus and supply of cheap peasant labour. So when we come back to this idea of minimum wage or wage rates generally, but particularly minimum wage, then the productive method of employment, which is socially productive and output type productive, of employing switched on bright school kids to I'm assuming people who are around my age did this, from the age of, how old was I? 14. I was doing, in fact, younger. I was doing a paper run earlier than that, but doing, after school, weekend, that sort of thing. This is just like you're still a high school student, but you're just doing some part-time casual work. A lot of people did it at McDonald's and or national food chains, Pizza Hut or whatever. And they got jobs there. And whenever I'd certainly go to McDonald's, other than the manager and the assistant manager, maybe one or two full-timers, it was all school kids or college kids doing. Now you'd be lucky to find any college kids doing it, maybe in the way out of suburban stuff, but wherever they've got access to, mass peasant third world labour, that's it. And you'd be lucky to find anyone who can speak English. The amount of time I've been into national chains of burgers and takeout food, and I've had to show them what their specials are and what their promo are. It's astonishing that they don't know and they don't give a shit either. So minimum wage, increase in minimum wage, and increases in wages generally force a rethink as a natural knock-on effect. It's a more efficiency. I would argue that increasing the minimum wage has an effect where third world illiterate peasants are being put out of work, and the labour hire firms that exploit them as slave peasant labour, maybe they're negatively affected. But the knock-on effect generally is it removes inefficient businesses that can only survive using slave labour, and also causes an improvement in productivity and efficiency and management capability. And I would argue that's a good thing. You've been Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.